Hello, so in this video I'm going to show you how to make homemade paint. So to start you need some flour, salt, water, and food coloring. So I'm going to start with our flour, and everything should be equal in measurement. So like if you want a small amount of paint, you might take half a cup of flour, salt, water, and mix it together. If you want a larger amount of paint, then you could do multiple cups. Just make sure that it's like 2 cups of flour, 2 cups of salt, 2 cups of water, so that all the measurements are equal. So I'm gonna go ahead and just do half a cup. So I'm taking a half a cup of my flour. Then I'm going to do half a cup of salt. Okay. And then half a cup of my water. Okay. All right, then I want to mix all that together. So I'm just going to use a fork. And you do want it to be like a thick liquid, which looks pretty good. It should have a consistency of kind of like pancake batter. Of course, you wouldn't want to eat this because with that kind of salt content, that's probably not going to taste very good. All right, so I'm stirring it. And I'm just using a fork. And I really just want to try to get rid of as much of those chunks as I can. So, that looks pretty good. It's kind of thick, but that's okay. You want your paint to be thick. So now I'm gonna take a spoon and a paper plate, and I'm gonna scoop some onto a paper plate. Now I've seen people use cupcake tins and scoop paint into the cupcake tins and then add the food coloring. That is a great way to do this too. So I have my paint on my paper plate. You can see there's no color to it right now. So I'm gonna need to take some food coloring. And most food coloring, this is gel food coloring. It's gonna do the same thing as liquid food coloring, but most food coloring packs will include blue, green, yellow, and red. And what's nice about that is that blue, yellow, and red are all you need to mix the secondary colors, because we call blue, yellow, and red the primary colors. So for example, if you mixed red and yellow together, you could get orange. So we're actually gonna try that out. So I'm gonna squirt some red, just a couple drops. And then I wanna squirt some yellow. And do just a little bit more yellow. All right, and I'm actually gonna use a palette knife. This is what artists use to mix their colors up. You can get them plastic or metal, and it's just a good way of mixing up your colors. So you can see right away those colors are mixing together, and I'm getting this dark mustard color, but it is starting to turn to orange. Oh, that's pretty. So yeah, that works out pretty well. Then of course, if I wanted to make other colors, I would go ahead and scoop more paint on my plate. So I'll show you what the green looks like. We'll paint a carrot today. So there's my orange. And I'm gonna just set that aside for a moment, switch plates. Now I'm gonna scoop some more of my paint substance on my paper plate. Again, it has that thick consistency like pancake batter. And I'm gonna add some green. And see the difference, the gel just comes out kind of like in I don't know how to say it, like a toothpaste kind of streak, whereas liquid would come out more like drops. So, and again, I'm just using my palette knife. You don't need to have a palette knife. You can use a spoon. You could use a knife. If you had popsicle sticks because you didn't want to ruin any spoons or anything or get them dirty, you could use a popsicle stick because then you could just throw it out. All right, so now we have our green. Awesome. So I'm gonna paint with green and orange today. I'm gonna set my my paint aside. It does remind me of dough. All right, and I'm just gonna grab some paper. And I'm gonna show you what this looks like. So you wanna have some water nearby so that you can rinse out your brush. So I just have a little cup of water. And I'm gonna get my brush wet real quick. I'm gonna go into my paint and I'm gonna paint across. It's kind of light, but it's working. You can definitely see the salt. There we go. So this isn't gonna be exactly like the paint you'd buy in the store. That paint's been mixed up differently. This is homemade paint, so you're gonna get a weird consistency. This is definitely different to me. But it's kind of cool, just the fact that, you know, making your own paint. And so you'll notice it does go on thick. And you will see that salt, but that's a great way to talk about texture. And it's gonna go on thick, so it's gonna create a layer on your paper. Remember, I'm painting a carrot. All right, so not my best carrot, but it'll work. So I'm gonna go ahead and wash my brush. Now I'm gonna use my green. And I'm gonna paint my green coming out of my carrot. I'm definitely curious to see what this looks like when it dries and how quickly it dries. So that's something I'll include in my description on the video, like how long it took to dry, what it ended up looking like, things like that. So really that's it for painting with my homemade paint. You can see that, here, let me show you. It definitely has some texture to it. So it has a rough look, and that's because of the salt content, but that is pretty cool still. Definitely would be neat to make like handprints with or stamping. So if you wanted to find objects, you could, like, if you had apples, for example, you could cut an apple in half and stick that in the paint and then dip it. You could do it with a potato. Things like that are great for this kind of project. But yeah, I mean, that's homemade paint. I'm no expert, but that's the recipe I found for it. And I mean, I would say it worked. So definitely something fun to try, especially just to get the idea of, like, if you want to talk about science and like what's going to happen when we mix this together. Like, what do you think it's going to look like? What do you think it's going to feel like? And that would be cool too, is to let your kids like touch it and really get that hands-on like feeling of stuff, because this is definitely, oh, like when I touch it, it's got a different consistency. At first it was actually smooth, but now that I rub my fingers together, it almost feels like those face masks that you put on. So it's definitely got, you can feel the salt between your fingers. So yes, now I got messy. Well, anyways, I hope you have fun with this. It's really just have fun, get creative, try something out, learn a new trick. So thanks for watching. I had fun making this video, and I hope you have fun watching it and trying it yourself. Bye!